I want to tell you something that most financial advisors will never tell you because what I'm about to say contradicts the single most consistent piece of financial advice given to ordinary people over the past 50 years. Stop saving money. Not completely, not recklessly, but the version of saving that most people practice. The automatic, undifferentiated setting aside of dollars into accounts that return less than inflation while you wait for enough to accumulate that you can begin to do something real with it. That version is not building your wealth. It is, in many cases, quietly destroying it. I understand how counterintuitive this sounds. For most people, saving is the responsible thing, the disciplined thing, the thing that separates people who are serious about their financial future from people who aren't. It is associated with maturity, with delayed gratification, with the kind of patient, steady behavior that your parents and their parents treated as the foundation of financial stability. And it was for a long time much closer to being correct than it is now. In environments where savings accounts returned meaningful interest, where the simple act of depositing money produced real growth over time, the advice to save made sense as a primary financial strategy. But we have not lived in that environment for decades. We live in an environment of persistent low real interest rates where the money sitting in your savings account is not quietly growing. It is quietly losing. The inflation rate in most years exceeds what your savings account returns, which means every year you hold cash in a low yield account, you are losing purchasing power. Not dramatically, insidiously. The kind of loss that doesn't show up as a negative number on your statement, but that compounds over years and decades into an enormous gap between what you think you're building and what you've actually built. This is not an argument against financial discipline. It is an argument for financial precision, for understanding the actual mechanism by which wealth is built and redirecting your behavior toward that mechanism rather than the one that feels responsible but produces a fraction of its potential. Let me tell you what I actually did with my money when I had almost none of it. When I was 26 years old, I was running what I called an investment firm out of my two-bedroom apartment in New York. The firm was me. I had no staff, no investors, almost no revenue, and the memory of having borrowed money from my father the previous year still fresh enough that the embarrassment of it was functional. In that environment, I had two choices about what to do with whatever money came in. The first choice was the conventional one: save it, build a cushion, create the financial security that would allow me to operate from a position of stability rather than precariousness. The second choice was to deploy it, not spend it, not consume it, but put it to work in ways that would produce returns that dwarfed what any savings account could offer, while also building the knowledge and experience and relationships that would compound alongside the financial returns. I chose the second, not because I was certain it would work, because I had done enough studying of how wealth actually builds to understand that the first option, the safe, conventional, responsible option, was not actually safe. It was the option that preserved my current position while foreclosing the possibility of a materially different future one. Saved money at 26 was a floor. Deployed money was a foundation. And the difference between a floor and a foundation is the difference between something that keeps you from falling and something you can build on. Here's the mechanism I want you to understand, because it's the one that changes everything once it's genuinely internalized. Money has two modes of existence. In the first mode, it is inert. It sits. It exists as a stored representation of past labor, value that has already been created, captured, and held. In this mode, money is useful for exactly one thing: being available when you need it. The emergency fund, the liquidity reserve, the cushion that means a single unexpected expense doesn't collapse everything else. This version of money is necessary. A certain amount of it held in accessible form is genuinely important, but it is not the mechanism of wealth building. It is the mechanism of security maintenance. These are different things, and confusing them is the error most people make. In the second mode, money is productive. It is doing something. It is invested in assets that generate returns, a business, equities, real estate, any vehicle that takes your dollar and over time produces more than $1 from it. In this mode, money is not resting. It is working. And working money, given enough time and the right deployment, does something that resting money never can. It compounds. The principle of compounding is the most powerful force in personal finance and the most consistently underestimated. Not because people don't know the word, because the human mind is not built to intuitively grasp exponential growth over long time horizons. We understand linear progression. Work for a dollar, receive a dollar, far better than we understand compounding, which is why saving linear feels more real and more controllable than investing exponential, even when investing over any significant time horizon produces dramatically better outcomes. Let me make this concrete. A dollar saved in a low yield account today, held for 30 years in a 1% annual interest environment, produces roughly $1.35. The same dollar invested in a diversified portfolio that produces an average 7% annual return, conservative by historical standards for a long-term diversified equity investment, produces approximately $7.61 over the same period. The same dollar, 30 years. A 460% difference in outcome. This is not a trick or an edge case. This is compounding operating over the time horizon that most people actually have available to them if they begin deploying money productively in their 20s or 30s. The difference between the saver and the investor, held constant over a working lifetime, is not marginal. It is the difference between two entirely different financial lives. I want to address the objection that arrives here because it is real and it matters. The objection is, but investing involves risk. Saving is safe. You can lose money in the market. You cannot lose money in a savings account. This objection contains a truth and a misunderstanding, and the misunderstanding is the expensive part. The truth, yes, markets decline. Investments can lose value in the short term. A person who invests money they need next year in an equity portfolio is taking a genuine risk that their money will be worth less when they need it. The misunderstanding. The relevant comparison is not between the risk of investing and the zero risk of saving. The relevant comparison is between two different types of risk: the visible short-term risk of investing and the invisible long-term risk of not investing. Not investing, holding cash, saving in low-yield accounts, deferring deployment until conditions feel safer or more certain, carries a specific and compounding risk: the risk of inflation erosion, the risk of opportunity cost, and the risk of arriving at the end of your working years having protected yourself from market volatility while having built far less than you could have built, and now having far less time to build anything at all. This second risk is real. It is just slow and invisible in a way that the first risk is not, which means most people never account for it the way they account for the possibility of a portfolio decline. At Bridgewater, one of our core operating principles was that you must account for all risks, including the ones that don't arrive with obvious warning signs. The risk of not investing is not loud. It does not announce itself with declining account balances or alarming headlines. It accumulates in the gap between what you have built and what you could have built, a gap that only becomes fully visible in retrospect when the time to close it is gone. So what should you be doing instead of simply saving? I want to be precise about this, because stop saving and invest is not a strategy. It is a direction. The strategy requires specificity. The first thing I did, and the first thing I would recommend to anyone starting from almost nothing, was to build exactly enough liquidity to function. 6 months of essential expenses in genuinely accessible form, not in equities, not in anything that requires time to liquidate or that can lose value in the short term. Actual liquidity, cash or cash equivalents. This amount provides the operational security that allows everything else to be deployed without the constant anxiety of having nothing to fall back on if something goes wrong. The specific amount varies by circumstance. The principle does not. You need a floor of genuine liquidity. And once you have it, additional money in that form is not building your position. It is costing you the returns that money could have been producing. The second thing is diversification across assets that are not correlated, meaning assets that don't all go down at the same time when conditions change. This is the core of what became Bridgewater's all-weather approach, the recognition that different asset classes perform differently in different economic environments, and that a portfolio structured to hold assets that respond differently to economic change can produce reasonable returns in almost any environment without requiring you to predict which environment is coming. Most people are not diversified in this meaningful sense. They may hold multiple individual stocks, but if all of those stocks respond similarly to the same economic forces, the diversification is illusory. Real diversification is across assets that respond to economic conditions differently, a mix that produces stability across market cycles rather than exposure to any single cycle's downturns. The third thing is the management of the cost of being wrong. One of the most consistent errors I've watched people make in their transition from saving to investing is taking positions that are too large relative to their total capital, concentrating their investment in single bets, single stocks, single sectors, single ideas, and then being wiped out when those bets go wrong. The lesson I learned from my own catastrophic period in the early 1980s is that the question is never only whether you're right. It is also, what happens if you're wrong, and is that outcome survivable? Position sizing, the discipline of ensuring that no single investment can wipe you out if it fails, is one of the most underrated concepts in personal finance. It allows you to be wrong multiple times without being finished. And you will be wrong. Everyone who invests is wrong repeatedly over any long period. The question is whether the structure of your investments allows you to survive being wrong and remain in the game long enough for the overall portfolio to produce the compounding returns that long-term investing generates. There is one more thing I want to say about this, and it is the one that took me longest to fully understand. The shift from saving to investing is not primarily a financial shift. It is a psychological one. Saving feels safe. Investing feels like gambling to many people because the outcomes are uncertain and the uncertainty is visible. You can watch a portfolio lose value in real time in a way that you cannot watch a savings account lose value to inflation over years. But the feeling of safety that saving provides is, in large part, an illusion. It is the feeling of control, of having your resources in a form you can see and access and count, rather than the reality of having those resources working in a way that will actually produce the outcome you want. Building genuine wealth requires tolerating a different kind of uncertainty than most people are accustomed to tolerating. The uncertainty of watching short-term fluctuations in the value of assets you own while maintaining confidence in the long-term direction of a well-constructed portfolio. The uncertainty of being in a position where your money is doing something rather than simply sitting, and where the doing carries risk alongside the return. This tolerance is not natural for most people. It has to be built, and it is built not through willpower but through understanding, through genuinely internalizing the mechanisms I've described here, the compounding and the diversification and the position sizing, until the long-term picture is vivid enough and well-reasoned enough that short-term fluctuations can be held without panic. The person who can do this, who can keep their long-term perspective intact through the short-term volatility that will inevitably occur, is the person whose money is actually working for them rather than slowly losing ground while they watch. That is the difference I'm asking you to make, not between saving and recklessness, between two different kinds of discipline, and the discipline of accumulating money and the discipline of deploying it in ways that allow it to work while you sleep, to compound while you age, to build the financial life that resting money, however carefully saved, will never produce. Stop saving money. Start building with it. The distinction is the whole game.